called Brett Payne.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Please come forward. Raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
During the course of, I guess, the investigation from November 13th forward, was there videos that were collected, like a video canvas done of the community?
Yes, ma'am, there was.
Is that something you were involved in?
No, ma'am, I was not involved in the direct collection of those videos.
Who is responsible for the video collection and knowing what videos exist?
So the way that worked was individual investigators who went out in the community and collected those videos, brought them back to the police department and provided them to our digital forensics office. And then they were later booked in through that channel.
On the right, look at all these apartment buildings. Ton of apartment buildings on the right. Remember, there's one building where we found out they gave up video. They had a camera that was pointing down towards Taylor Ave. More.
Who is responsible for the video collection and knowing what videos exist?
So the way that worked was, individual investigators who went out in the community and collected those videos, brought them back to the police department and provided them to our digital forensics office, and then they were later booked in through that channel.
So the digital forensics office would be the responsible entity to receive these pieces of video surveillance, is that right?
Yes, ma'am, I would say it was a dropping off point for those pieces, yes.
And who is that person?
That was a joint effort between Detective Mowry and several people within the FBI.
Which people within the FBI?
I do not remember.
Detective Payne, I'm asking because last week, Detective Mowry told us that he wasn't in charge of these videos. And I need to know where they are. And search warrants for a minute. Did you author affidavits in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you use affidavits you authored in support of search warrants to obtain information that you wanted to take a look at?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you author the affidavit that was used for the arrest warrant for Bryan Kohberger?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you rely on when you wrote these affidavits?
Be more specific.
Yes, let's focus on the affidavit for the AT&T records. There were 2 search warrants on December 23rd, 2022.
Good morning. My name is Roger Lanier. I'm a captain with the Moscow Police Department. I'm in charge of the Operations Division. And today is December 12th, Monday, and I want to give you an update on the King Road homicide investigations, at least the information that we have to this point. Over the weekend, investigators still continued to sort through numerous tips, calls, and online tips in regard to this investigation. There's been a lot of questions about the white car that we've been interested in. We're looking for that car because we believe through our investigation that that car was in the area during the time of the murders, and we also believe that the occupant or occupants may have seen something. They may not know they have seen something.
What kind of progress has been made regarding the search for information about the white Hyundai Elantra?
We have looked at massive amounts of video footage, especially in the critical camera areas, and we've looked at the 24 hours prior to and 24 hours after of those, and now we're extending that out even further to other cameras and other time frames.
What kind of manpower does it take to really deal with all of the video coming in and the tips?
We have massive amounts of people looking at this. multiple different groups looking at the different videos in different locations, just because we have investigators all across the nation that are reviewing these videos for us and sending us back information on that.
What about the video evidence? How is that reviewed? What do you do with it?
So we have a special team of individuals who are skilled at watching videos, collecting evidence and information out of those videos and linking them together so that we can tie every piece together for this investigation.
What do you have for an update about the white Hyundai Elantra?
We have many tips that have come in on the 2011 to the 2013 Hyundai Elantra. But
Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's talk about those search warrants and the affidavit. First, the affidavit. What did you rely on in the affidavit you wrote for the first AT&T search warrant on December 23rd, 2022?
It was a conglomerate of interviews, data received from cell phones, my observations of some surveillance footage that was taking place, various other things. Go down the line. If you could be more specific on specific parts, I'd be happy to tell you what I'd like.
Okay.
So Morgan, who's your pick?
Hottest female serial killer ever. That's a tough call. Kristen Gilbert had that whole boring thing going on that's kind of hot, but Myra Henley had great style.
She did. She really did. My vote is for Josephine, the Clipper Walker. Great bone structure, into personal hygiene, highly intelligent.
Sounds like me.
Highly intelligent.
Cool. So I'm gonna go out on a limb, as they say, and put my money on Countess Bathory, even though it's really hard to tell what she looks like.
Well, you've always been into mystery.
And yet I dated you.
And it looks like our listeners agree with me. Once again, the crown goes to the Clipper, with bad Professor Lila Childs sliding into a sultry second, and Fashion Week's Myra Henley taking the bronze.
Join us next week as we put our 2 cents into the healthcare debate with our episode that takes on the nurse curse.
We'll talk about why so many lady killers had double lives as caretakers.
I'm Morgan.
I'm Jean, and we are
Women Who Kill.
there was a part of the affidavit where you talked about WSU officers identifying white Elantras.
Yes, ma'am.
And there was a part of the affidavit where you talked about 2011 to 2013 Elantras, and then it expanded to 2016 to include the year of 2016 Elantras.
Yes, ma'am.
What I want to know first is what you relied on to expand that search from 2013 to include 14, 15, and 16.
That information was provided to FBI Special Agent Imel. He's a vehicle identification specialist. He used snapshots from the previously mentioned surveillance videos, and that was his determination on the types of vehicles we should be looking for, rather the year range we should look for. It would be in his report, it would be more specific, but that was what I based the affidavit off of, that portion of it.
I understand as far as when we get to 2013, but when we go beyond that, what did you rely on to get beyond that?
It would have been his input as an expert in vehicle identification. That's what we relied on.
Are you sure this is safe?
No.
Part of your affidavit talks about WSU officers finding white Elantras. And I believe there was an officer that you had some communication with. Do you recall the date you had that communication?
I do not recall the date.
Did you have some messaging system exchange with this officer to talk about that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the only means of communication you had with this officer?
No, ma'am. I believe I spoke to him on the telephone as well.
When you spoke to him on the telephone, how did that relate to the date of the messaging?
It would have likely been, if memory serves, it would likely been that same day.
Okay. Does December 20th, 2022 sound familiar to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And so this conversation with this officer from Washington, it related backwards to when he noticed an Elantra, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
But when he noticed it, you didn't know about that yet. Is that also correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so you don't know about him or talk to him until December 20th, 2022, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Taylor says the same FBI report relates to Kohberger's cell phone records. She says her team needs that information to avoid a due process violation for their client.
As the court is aware, the state has a duty to provide discovery to the defense. As the court is aware that not producing discovery, especially when it's material, can be a due process violation. And as the court is aware, the state has filed its notice of intent to seek death against Mr. Kohberger. These are critical, relevant materials, all of them, including the police training records. They're necessary for us to prepare and present our defense of Mr. Kohberger. They're necessary for us to do our investigation. They're necessary for us to prepare our case and our motion practice moving forward. These are things that we need to have.
In your affidavits, did you rely on cell phone information and cell phone location information?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you work with cell phone records yourself?
No, ma'am.
Did you see cell phone records yourself?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
When was the first time you saw cell phone records that were attributed to Brian Kohberger?
I do not remember what date that was.
What's in it?
Just memories.
I meant the drink. I don't want to know what's in the box.
Everybody wants to know what's in the box.
I don't.
Well, maybe you can give me an estimate. We know on the 20th, you're talking to WSU about an observation from a month before. And we know on December 23rd, you're asking for AT&T warrants for information. Can you narrow
That's
it
a
down?
yes.
Sorry, Judge.
That's a yes. You can, I just want to get the record. Yes,
Yes, that's
okay,
correct.
thank you.
So between those 2 days, does that help you identify the first time you saw cell phone records related to Brian Kohberger?
Memory serves, the first time I saw any cell phone records related to Brian Kohberger was after we received the return from the first search warrant.
I have this fear all the time now that there's this crowd of people around me, judging me, just waiting for me to slip up so they can tar and feather me or drive me out of town. And I think I end up thinking about these people so much that I sometimes forget what I really think, how I really feel about something.
Are you and Balance exchanging emails about these records?
No, ma'am, not that I remember.
town is asleep. The snow begins. I watch the snow from my bedroom window. The snow is cold. My room is hot. Are you watching it too? Across this town, love in winter. against my bedroom window. There are no footprints in the snow. There are no snow plows on the road. Let's take a walk down my street under the light falling snow. Love in winter feels so good. I'm a marshmallow melting. You're my favorite mug. Love in winter feels so good. You're the gust of wind against my bedroom tonight. Marshmallow melting, melting.
Children. Come to the door, guys. Send whoever lives here down to the door.
How did you get them to?
We were co-located. At the time, Detective Balance was at the Moscow Police Department about 30 feet down the hallway.
Are the two of you exchanging text messaging during this time?
I do not remember if you texted during that time.
I may have a record that would refresh your memory. I'm certainly not seeking to have these admitted, but I'd like to hand him some records to see if we can refresh his memory. Do you recognize what's been placed in front of you?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay. Does reading the content of some December 23rd messages refresh your recollection about participating in text messages with Nicholas Balance?
It really does not, ma'am.
Will you look at, there's 3 separate stapled documents. Will you move that one and go to the next one?
Still on December 23rd?
Yeah.
I do vaguely remember that exchange, the one at the top of this second.
There are these ne'er-do-well characters, the fox in particular. Now, fox is a standard trickster animal, right? It's a classic animal, maybe because it's good at hiding and it's good at hunting. I don't know exactly why, but and coyotes are like that too. They're walking down the street and the fox is bragging away about some crooked thing that he's done and how he pulled the wool over someone's eyes, and he confuses that with wisdom and intelligence. And one of the things that you see, this is worth knowing too, because if you're preyed upon by a psychopath, which you will be to some degree at some point in your life, the psychopath, who will be narcissistic, will presume that you're stupid and that you deserve to be taken advantage of because you're naive and stupid. So it's actually a good thing that he's doing it. And his proof for, and I'm saying he because there are more male psychopaths,
During the course of your investigation and work on the case that became the case that we're here for now, did you communicate with Agent Valance by email?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Alex taking her first.
Why'd you quit drinking?
It just got out of hand.
I'd like to see that.
No, you wouldn't.
Why? Did you hurt someone or something?
No, I didn't.
You did.
I didn't hurt anyone. I killed them.
What?
I'm teasing you. I quit drinking because I got tired of waking up in my vomit.
So the blue fairy shows up, so that's nature. So what I'm saying is that nature will cut kids a break. If you think of nature in the guise of, well, their mother, for example, but even the biology of other people. Because we're wired to accept behavior from children that we wouldn't accept from other people. So nature will forgive. So she shows up in her heavenly guise and says, what's going on? And Pinocchio, again because he's naive, but also because he's not good. He's not evil either. He's neither or both. It depends on how you look at it. And he also has no idea how smart he is and how smart he isn't, or how smart the person he's talking to is. And instead of admitting what he's done, he lies about it. And that's interesting because it does suggest that he understands at some level that he set himself up for this. Because, you know, he could have just told the truth. This horrible fox kidnapped me and sold me to this slave holder, which is true. It's a lot more true than the story he tells. He tells a story about some monster, you know, a fictional monster. He could have told even 3/4 of the truth and had it work, but he doesn't. He just obscures the story entirely. And this is the part of the movie that people remember. And I'd edited this out for years when I was talking about this movie. I forgot why it was so significant. His nose grows, right? And it grows to ridiculous length. And why is that? I think it was Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, I think, who said, one of the advantages to telling the truth is that you don't have to remember what you said.
Every case I've defended sort of starts with me getting the facts from my client, and then at some point I'll get the police reports. I'll start noticing, wow, these two things aren't the same. So what happened here? Fact is, sometimes cops are just lying. They're telling bald-faced lies. Other times, the cops aren't lying. They're just bullshitting, and there's a slight difference between the two. To understand this difference, I'll tell you about one of my many cops lying situations in my cases. I had this client, and he was pulled over after midnight. He was driving a nice car, and his trunk had a bunch of drugs. He got charged with drug trafficking. The cop stated in his police report that he pulled over my client because he somehow knew his name and then ran that name on the David system, a special suspended license driver's check system. And David's system said my guy was suspended, so then he had the right to pull him over. However, this cop didn't really know my client's name. He just saw a nice car. He saw my client's dreadlocks. He profiled him. Anyway, every cop is given a unique password to the David system, and it's ran up in Tallahassee. So we went to Tallahassee. We got the David system records. It showed exactly when this officer ran my client's name through the David system. And as you might expect, this officer didn't run my client's name before he pulled him over. He didn't even run his name through the David system for over 20 minutes after the stop. I think he'd already found the drugs by then. This officer completely lied about why he stopped my client. We proved it. That drug trafficking charge was dropped. It's gone. However, when officers bullshit, that's slightly different than the bald-faced lie I see a lot. BSing tends to be more of an untruthful exaggeration versus the typical bald-faced lie. As author Laura Penny explains, she's got a book about bullshit. She says, BS is like painting your lawn green when the queen comes to town. The grass may well have been green to start with, but it ain't that green. And that's what we see all the time. We either see bald-faced lies or we see BS. Fortunately, over the years, we have the tools to deal with it, like I talked about previously, so we can fish through all this and prove at times what is the truth and what isn't.
Now I'm ready to talk about the things that same day as the first one. And was there anything else from AT&T that you saw or relied on to get the second one off the ground?
No, ma'am.
And in the first AT&T search warrant, are you aware that part of the request was for timing advance reports?
Yes, ma'am.
And in fact, that also appears in your second search warrant request, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And not only do you ask for the timing advance reports from AT&T, you asked for them from several other companies, correct? Verizon's version of it, T-Mobile's version of this kind of timing advance report. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. When was the first time you saw AT&T's timing advance report?
I do not recall when I first saw it.
Where is it?
To the best of my knowledge, all that information from those returns has been provided to the prosecutor's office. Prosecutor's office.
If I tell you I don't have a timing advance report or any from the other phone companies, where do I look for them?
I would direct you back to the prosecutor's office. Everything that Moscow PD received, in that realm, we have turned over to my knowledge.
But you know you've seen this report, is that right?
I do not recall if I've seen the timing advance reports. I'd have to see what it even looked like to know if I'd seen it.
During the course of your investigation and work on the case that became the case that we're here for now, did you communicate with Agent Valance by email?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you communicate with other FBI agents by email?
Yes, ma'am.
And did that relate to the investigation of the scene and later the investigation of Brian Kohberger?
Certainly, yes, ma'am.
Were those communications that assisted you in preparing affidavits and search warrants to carry out your duties in the case?
I do not recall.
But you recall the emails themselves?
I recall sending emails to FBI agents, yes, but
And-
specifics, no.
And receiving them?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are those emails now?
All emails that Moscow PD is aware of have been turned over to the prosecutor's office.
Well, you told me that you're not the guy who understands how to interpret these records. Do you know anything about cell phone towers?
Very little, ma'am.
Okay. So when you wrote the second AT&T warrant, you have possession of Brian Kohberger's call detail records or AT&T records, but you don't know what they mean, so you're relying on somebody else.
Yes, ma'am.
Who all did you rely on?
Mainly it was Special Agent Valance. He was my main point of contact for understanding what was going on.
Okay. In fact, in your affidavit for the second AT&T report, there's a couple of maps in there. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And one of them has some video camera information. That's the first map. Where did that come from?
I do not recall. If you have a copy of it, I can refresh my memory and tell you.
I bet I do. I have what we've marked defendants B.
Are you referring to there's two maps, the WSU focused map that you're referring to? It's completely washed out on this copy. I can't even see what it is.
It's hard to see, isn't it? What I want to know is what you relied on to get that first one that talks about WSU and the cameras of WSU. Where'd you get that?
Yes, ma'am. So Special Agent Rob Hilley with the FBI was also co-located with us. He was tasked with analyzing that video from WSU and the surrounding area. So it was a conversation between he and I, pointing out areas of locations where the car was likely seen on surveillance footage. And that's what I relied upon to create that map.
So you created that map how?
Through PowerPoint, I believe, ma'am. Memory serves.
You saved your work on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's go to the next map. That one would appear to be a trail or a path from south of Moscow back towards Lewiston or back towards Polk. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you get that map?
Same thing. It was just created using open source satellite imagery, and I think it was PowerPoint.
Did you create that?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you get the information to draw that trail?
So that was used from the cell phone records referred to me by Special Agent Valance on his interpretation of possible places where someone could have driven between the location that it starts there and then back to Pullman.
Now, talking about the timing advance records, are you aware that AT&T didn't provide timing advance records in December of 2022?
I do not remember.
Are you aware that they did not start providing those records until May of 2023?
Objection leading.
Cross-examination.
It is overruled. Go ahead.
I'll re-ask. Are you aware that AT&T did not start providing those records until May of 2023?
Yes.
Now, talking about the timing advance records, are you aware that AT&T didn't provide timing advance records in December of 2022?
I do not remember.
Are you aware that they did not start providing those records until May of 2023?
Objection, lady.
Cross-examination.
It is overruled. Go ahead.
I'll re-ask. Are you aware that AT&T did not start providing those records until May of 2023?
Yes.
I don't have anything further.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor?
Thanks. Let's start there. May of 2023. Do you have timing advance records now from May of 2023?
I would have to direct you to Detective Mallory to answer that question. Don't know.
Okay. Did you write a new warrant for them in May of 2023?
I do not recall.
If you included them in 2 separate warrants in December of 2022, but they didn't provide them, why would you do that?
It was the language that was suggested to me to write the affidavit, so.
Language suggested by an FBI agent who's an expert in the field?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And do you know if he saw the timing advance reports?
I do not know.
All right. Now, those first and second AT&T warrants were how many hours from receiving the return on the first one until the second one was given to Judge Marshall at 4:45?
I do not remember.
Not very many hours, though. Would that be fair?
Likely not.
I want to talk a little bit more about the video and what's been turned over and what hasn't been turned over to us. And I want to focus a little bit on South US 95. Do you recall that south of Moscow on US 95 is the path that you put in your search warrant and affidavit alleging that Brian Kohberger left Moscow going south on US 95?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And are you aware that one of the videos that you gave us, the coffee shop there on South 95, that leaving Moscow, you have to pass that covers 5 a.m. to 6 a.m.?
I do not recall the time frame for that.
And so the time frame in these videos would matter, right?
Certainly.
The time frame in the videos to be meaningful would need to cover a time that surrounds the allegations against Mr. Kohberger. Is that fair to say?
You could say that, yes.
Okay. And are you aware that Wasankari Construction had a video, and that also has a very limited time frame, like 5 a.m., just 1 hour of video also?
Sounds vaguely familiar, yes.
And that's also south on Highway 95, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And the one we talked about today, Monday's machine that nobody could find, that clearly was given to Moscow Police Department, that's also south on 95.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I understand that you had a lot of help on canvassing and collecting things. There was a lot to do. But as the lead agent and the lead department, is there some kind of inventory of these videos, like a general inventory that would help me know what you have and why you don't have the relevant timeframes?
The inventory that would be most useful to you is the inventory of evidence that has been booked into the Moscow Police Department. That's the inventory.
And I did come see the evidence. That's fair. I did come see the evidence. We didn't watch videos together though, did we?
No, ma'am.
And would you agree that that evidence is on thumb drives with stickies on papers that tell us different things, but not like an inventory of what's on each thumb drive?
I am not aware of an inventory of each individual thumb drive.
Okay. So for us to do that together would take some days to inventory it all together. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's my best way to try to find this Monday's machine.
Sure.
And Wasankari Construction.
Yes, ma'am.
That's it. Thanks.
All right. Ms. Taylor, anything to follow up on that? Ms. Jennings?
Oh, just one second. Thank you. I just want to clarify what's in your probable cause affidavit. Does your probable cause affidavit state that Kohberger or a white Elantra went on US 95 south of Moscow?
No, it's not.
Okay. What does it state?
Memory serves states that the next time, well, it states that a vehicle was seen leaving the area of the crime scene, on King Road, leaving via Walenta Drive, which heads south from that area, and then terminates on Conestoga and Moose River Drive. That's what the probable cause affidavit states.
And to your knowledge, are there other paths of travel south of Moscow besides US 95?
Yes.
And what's that other route?
I believe the one that was referenced in the affidavit goes from Moose River Drive, which turns into Sand Road at the state line, not the Idaho-Washington state line. That road continues westbound until south of Pullman and eventually leads north into Pullman at Bishop Boulevard, if memory serves.
And does that path of travel go by Watson Carry Construction?
I do not believe it does.
Did you attempt to obtain surveillance on that path of travel that doesn't go through 95?
Yes, we did.
And were you successful?
I don't believe we were.
I don't have anything further.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Taylor?
Are you testifying that Mr. Kohberger did not use Highway 95 south of Moscow on November 13th?
I'm testifying that there are various routes that a person could take south of Moscow to include Highway 95. There are also several others.
Which one does your map depict?
I believe the map starts well south of Moscow, more towards Genesee, and there is the line that starts there. However, I would direct you to the paragraph at the beginning of the map that says this is a possible route to travel between the two locations.
So you're just not sure?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That would include then Highway 95 south of Moscow.
Yes, ma'am. What?
And that would include other possible routes.
Yes, ma'am.
How many video surveillance attempts did you make to get video from businesses or homes on all of those routes?
I do not recall, but it continued for some time, attempting to find additional video footage.
What did you find?
Nothing to my recollection.
Not one video depicting the car.
To my memory, no.
Good enough, thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Who's this Michael guy?
Hey, Ricky just figured something out. Something wonderful.
Evian is naive spelled backwards. Can you turn this up, please? Please? You won't be sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to clarify what's in your probable cause affidavit. Does your probable cause affidavit state that Kohberger or a white Elantra went on US 95 south of Moscow?
No, it's not.
Okay.
South of Moscow on US 95 is the path that you put in your search warrant and affidavit alleging that Brian Kohberger left Moscow going south on US 95.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.